it. But yeah, thanks for those who have already submitted their safe system assessments. Well done. You're ahead of time. It's not due for a little bit. When's it actually due, Kathy? I forget.
Next Wednesday, or close of business Wednesday. So make sure it's in before Thursday.
Yeah. And thank you also to those who have reached out for a little bit of advice, clarification on the task, clarification on the scope of their assessment. That's all good. It's all helpful, and it shows we're here to assist you along the journey. So please keep doing that for others that are still getting into it. And yeah, it'd be great for you to get that in within the allocated time frame. If life and work is just overwhelming you, get in contact with Kathy and have a chat about extending that time frame if need be. But yeah, good to get it over and done with. Get your certificate and then happily go out there and say you're a safe system assessor and do lots of assessments. I suppose it is a good opportunity then from the start to see if anybody does have any questions about their safe system assessment, and happy to talk through those now. I dare say that people who have questions, others will be having those same questions as well, or if they had the same situation, would have a similar question. So it's worth asking and getting an answer so the whole group can benefit from that. So if you've got any questions, you can either put your hand up, raise your hand, and then Kathy will give you the ability to unmute yourself, and then we can have a chat about it, or you could type something in. And happy to do whatever, zoom into a site or open up a template or talk things through. So I'll pause for a second there. I saw something flash up on screen. Kathy, was it a question or a comment?
Oh, it's just someone who's already submitted there. So yeah, would like some early feedback if possible, but I'm not sure you want to do that in this forum. Can we use you as a coach for the first couple of real assessments, Ken? On-call coach? Like your instant price estimator.
I'm happy to have a look and answer questions or organise a little chat just to bounce a few ideas or thoughts around it. Certainly, I think following through the process and the matrix, you're pretty good way there. So any input from me should be, if you're following all of that process and systems, it really just comes down to a few specifics in terms of, is this a likelihood or severity factor or an exposure factor? How should we weight this? Is it enough to trigger a change in score? Those sorts of things. So yeah, happy to get involved in that.
Also, can you provide pretty detailed feedback to everyone on their assignment? So it's not just a score, but you'll have a look at it and give some feedback. So that will definitely help people in terms of the next one and beyond.
Yep.
There's a question here about severity. Can we use existing data for operating speeds versus posted speeds when you're looking at severity? Yeah,
definitely. That's good data. That's good intel. It helps you. That would really inform both your likelihood and severity score, your operating speed data. And do remember though, like, speed data usually presented as mean or 85th percentile, and we know that there's a bit of correlation between the higher end speeders and crashes. So it will certainly, it guides you, but don't think if your 85th percentile's 49 that nothing will happen above that. No crashes will happen above that speed. You've still got the tail of your bell curve sitting up there with some higher end speeders. And that's like one of the beauties of things like road safety platforms or roundabouts. They pull in the bell curve. You don't have a hugely long tail. So You know, it's really hard for high-end speeders to navigate physical treatments often. So, yep. Other questions?
Yeah, another question, just reconfirming your earlier comments. I have 2 low volume intersections in my site. Do we add the intersection exposure calculations together, or should we undertake a separate assessment for each, even though they are low volume?
Okay. Maybe worth bringing that site up if you can, Kathy, just because I'm not quite sure I'm picturing that right. We in the selection of the sites, we sort of use this combination of trying to find existing real world stuff because we like to use real world examples and designs and things, but also trying to limit the work you have to do. We didn't want you doing multiple assessments, you know, like 6 matrices for the assignment, just to keep it within a reasonable time frame. So I dare say for this one, here we go. Kathy's bringing it up on screen. All right. Yeah. Okay. I see. So what okay. Is that a new raised crossing going in? Right. Yep.
Yes.
What I would do is for this one, hang on, have we got? We don't have side road volumes. Okay. I would just take the intersections and do them as one in this scenario. If I was doing this as a full safe system set, actually, I probably would, just because the focus of the treatment is that pedestrian crossing facility and there's some intersection upgrades, but I think you would add your intersection scores. So take the volume of 1,000 for the road, you know, the sort of subject road, add the volume of your road T intersection, or a predicted volume if you don't have that, add the minor little roads on the side, get an intersection score for exposure, then your likelihood may be swayed by a particular road there. So it could be something to do with the T intersection at the top, which I would dare say will be your most significant sort of area there, and you can talk about different features there, but your sight lines and things off the other one to influence likelihood. And then severity is going to be sort of determined by bullet vehicle speeds. So for the purpose of this one, yeah, just lump it all in together, add up those volumes to give you your intersection score. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I'm going to have a little bit of a deeper look at that design before I mark the assignments, those people who got that site, because I don't think I've looked at that yet.
For the exercise, can we assume a higher operating speed if the lane widths are wide?
Well, okay, it depends. I mean, are you talking about actual speed data collection? So somebody's collected speed data and you're wanting to adjust that based on lane width. Well, I think speed data is speed data. But if you're saying it's a 60k speed zone, but really wide lanes, I don't have any speed data. And then, yeah, those sort of factors would aid you in making assumptions on the operating speed. You go, actually, it's really wide, really straight, really open. I think 85th percentile or operating speeds are going to be higher than the speed limit. So yeah, sure, yeah, you certainly use that sort of intel or information to help inform your sort of your scoring there. So it could be that in your matrix you say, you know, likelihood of crashes, wide lanes, decrease crashes because decrease some sideswipe crashes and things like that because you've got more lane width, but increase likelihood of crashes because of likely higher speeds associated with the wide lanes and the straight alignment. Other questions?
That looks like it for the minute. So maybe we'll let you carry on. And if there's any more questions, do type them in or raise your hand if you want to talk something through.
Yeah, there's a good bit of time allocated in this session to do that, to discuss some of these intricacies. And yeah, the hope is that you've started thinking about your safe system assessment. But I'll run through a few slides around. It's more about safe system assessment process than anything else in this presentation. And then at the end, we do a few little scenarios of different road environments and what sort of aligns well and doesn't align well with safe system principles. And yeah, that will cover the day. So yeah, last session. So well done on getting this far through. And so this module's about talking a little bit about some of the benefits of safe system assessment. So some evaluations of the process, and then talking about that process within infrastructure projects predominantly. We can talk a little bit about the options available for what you could do safe system assessments on. And I just want to do a little bit more discussion about the difference between a safe system assessment and a road safety audit, because that's something that comes up quite a lot. People just a little bit confused as to what is the difference here. I've done the audit, and is this just a new name for a road safety audit and those sort of things? I mean, you're all quite now aware of the differences and the process, but there's a few more things to point out. Okay, here's a little graph, which is the output of an evaluation undertaken on first, well, not the first, but 35 safe system assessments of really quite major projects. We're talking things like town bypasses, new motorways. What else was in there? Some really big scale sort of grade separated interchanges. Yeah, big projects, right? And so safe system assessments were being done and done at the sort of concept / functional design stage. Now, so Blair Turner, who some of you probably know, led this evaluation. Blair Turner's a New Zealander. He was in Australia. Actually, no, I think he lives in the US now, working for the World Bank. But anyway, so he led an evaluation of this, and they used a prediction model technique. So using existing information about infrastructure and the risks associated with that, and the volume and the predicted crash rates of fatal and serious injuries associated with different characteristics of road environments, to sort of present this information. So over here we've got fatal and serious injury crashes predicted over a 20-year period from a point in time. So they've forecast 20 years, and then they've said this is how much death and serious injury we expect. And the first column here is if no project was done. So at these 35 sites, these areas, they don't do any project. Okay, they just let the road happen as it is. Let the growth, population growth happen, and all of the other things happen, and no project happens at all. And they predicted in those areas that there would be 7,900 serious injuries and 344 fatalities. The designs that were put forward, the original designs that came out of the big design houses, the big, big multinational companies pumping out road designs, they improved the situation, and they obviously improved the infrastructure and probably had lots of other benefits in terms of travel time and other things. The number of serious injuries predicted was 6,700, and the number of fatalities was 286, the prediction. Then the safe system assessment was done. And through the same process that you've used, a lot more assessing going on, a lot more matrices, and a lot more pouring through designs and getting out on site and the like. And the safe system assessment was completed, and then it had the recommendations or considerations. And if they were to take on the highest sort of big bang for your buck recommendations, which were seen as, the safe system assessments were producing, that brought the score, the number of serious injuries down to 3,800 or 3,900, and fatalities down to 167. The project teams then got that. They looked at it and they went, okay, well, we can't do that first one, but we can do that second one, and we can do this one, and we can't do that one. And all right, here are the things we're going to change. Back to the designers, change these things. They changed them. And what came back was the adopted project. So it had serious injuries predicted over the 20 years at 5,000, basically 300 and 227 fatalities. So this tells me quite a story, okay? And it tells me a story in a number of areas. So the first thing that it tells me is, okay, these big projects, and the way they usually design things, just run-of-the-mill design, improves road safety. Okay, we can't say that they're not. Their evaluation, well, at this macro level, you might pick one that's not, but they're generally improving road safety. The difference between this line here, to me, is sort of, what could be achieved. The difference between here and here, this is sort of constraints, real world constraints, or things that are hampering us getting bit higher alignment with safe system principles that are sort of somewhat maybe seen as out of our control. But things like perceived community acceptance of whatever the treatment was, political acceptance of it, funding, the funds available, environmental, cultural, heritage issues associated with being able to implement that idea or whatever it is. So some real world practical challenges. The difference between that and that, well, that is the value of doing a safe system assessment and going through that process and making those recommendations. because those are all things that they went, yeah, we can do that. We can do that within our project. And so we can see there, a pretty substantial saving off nothing else but going through this process, having that independent set of eyes sort of run through it, make these recommendations utilizing the safe system assessment process. The thing that I didn't tell you was that these original designs, of the 35 projects assessed, 33 of them had been subject to a road safety audit, and any recommendations out of that had been made. So the majority of this, like people often say, oh, well, you get, this has already been audited. We can still get that much more benefit out of it by just going through this safe system assessment process. Now, it'd be interesting to do this, in the present day, because this is now sort of 5 years old, 4 or 5 years old. Because the other benefit safe system assessments have had is this continual education for the designers and the project managers on what aligns well with safe system principles. So they're getting these safe system assessments, they're looking at them and they're going, oh, okay, they're saying that again, okay, yep, right. And then they get it again and they're like, okay, all right. And then they get to do a new design and they go, all right, I know I've got to do something about this speed through this intersection because I know it's going to get safe system assessed and it's going to get the same outcome. So what can I do? So you'd expect there to be improvements in this as we go, and a safe system assessment is a really great tool for that continuing education of industry about what things align really highly with safe system principles. Okay, so the things that I would say here are, to close this gap, having the safe system assessment is really important and really good. Education, continual learning for people through a whole variety of ways about what they can do is all going to help. This one is going to be a big challenge for us, and it's going to be things like, political lobbying, business cases for big funding injections, massive investment in community consultation, and getting the public on board with some of these features and things that we'd like to do on the road network that are going to have impacts on their lives. But we need to sort of instill that idea that we all have to compromise a little bit for the greater good. I hope some of you are going, hang on a second. What on earth is going on here? This is high safe system alignment. This is what we're coming out with, it's spitting out recommendations out of the safe system assessment. And we've still got this residual trauma problem. Yes, admittedly, we've come a long way down from where we would be, but what's going on here that even our best safe system aligned stuff is spitting out 167 deaths and 3,890 serious injuries? Well, this is, I suppose, an indication of a number of things. The first is that the modeling used and the way that they did this takes into account the real use of the network. It takes into account motorcyclists. It takes into account those extreme driver behaviour incidents. And we know that, even if we produce the best infrastructure we're aware of at the time, there's still going to be this residual trauma. So we have to, there's a few things on this. We have to utilize other elements of the safe system. This was just really predominantly the infrastructure. And some of the safe system assessments had other features in there, but they weren't recognized as having enough to do that broad across the board alteration in things like extreme speeding, drug driving, and these sorts of things. Like they help out in their own certain way. Like some of them were building enforcement bays and things like that. Well, not going to be enforced all the time, and it's going to, some people will be definitely still intoxicated and the like, or speeding, but sometimes it will help, and it adds to the stuff we're doing. But that's sort of the reality of it as well. So what we need to do is look at other elements of the system and enhancing those, and continuing on with our education campaigns, our encouragement campaigns, our enforcement techniques, really ramping up the vehicle technology. So that was one thing that probably wasn't as accounted for in the model in terms of vehicle feature enhancements. They took some of that into account, but there's a lot of unknowns in that. So, but we can, try and leverage as much as we can off that sort of stuff. The other thing I think embedded in this is innovation within the infrastructure field. This is the safe system assessors only had sort of the ideas of what was currently available or they could think of. We need people looking and analysing issues and problems that aren't getting addressed and try to look for infrastructure solutions. There was a little bit of this built into this, I think, where the safe system assessors are taken into account, the objectives of the project, the movement in place context and the like, and come out with treatments. I mean, they were trying to be sort of practical, but the nature of that meant that you do get some of this residual risk. I mean, that yes, they could have, the safe system assessment could have said, well, you're building a new motorway. We're worried about motorcyclist crashes and the like, so ban motorcyclists on the motorway, or reduce the speed limit to 40 kilometres per hour for all vehicles, and put point-to-point enforcement. There was sort of those extreme things were not put in as recommendations in the safe system assessment, because obviously they're too extreme. They're not actually helpful in the scheme of things. So you've got to find that balance of pushing and pushing people forward and really striving for big things, but it's got to be sort of within the realms of possibility. I hope that makes sense. If you've got any questions about this graph, as I say, for me, it just tells a wonderful story about the immediate success of safe system assessment. Just adding that process in, saving big lives in just 35 projects. It does tell us that story of, we need to pull the community, pull the politics, pull the funding on board, and we need to continue to work in a whole lot of areas. And people often sort of say, well, you're spending a lot of time concentrating on the infrastructure here. Well, yeah, this is again a reminder that we need all the elements of the system working together. Because infrastructure alone is only getting us part of the way. Questions, comments? Happy?
No questions or comments on this one just yet, but we'll give everyone a minute. We did have a specific question, which I'll come back to in a second. There's a question here about asking, I assume it's quite a process to convert SSA score to death and serious injury for each project.
It is. It is quite a process, and until we get some uniformity in scoring, better uniformity in scoring, and sort of start to weed out some of the subjectivity, you can't actually just say, a score of X will represent, take your score and multiply it by 0.06 and you get your DSI or death serious injury or FSI, fatal serious injury numbers. We're too all over the place with scores to that. So that's why they actually sort of they were just taking the designs, the existing conditions, the designs, and the recommendations, and plugging those into existing models like the like IRAP, the International Road Assessment Program model, which is the same variables as ANRAM, the Australian National Risk Assessment Model, which is very similar to some models used in New Zealand, like IRR, the Infrastructure Risk Rating methodology, and a few others. So, there's good, well-known stuff available for us to be able to get some prediction on fatal serious injury if, even if it's a new road. So we don't need crash history to do it, but you're basically saying, a typical crash rate on a road like that is this, based on a whole lot of, other like roads, and then starting to utilize characteristics of the new road environment to adjust that score accordingly.
Yeah, lots of further comments and questions coming in, Ken. Has safe system assessments been around long enough to provide data on successes, not just predicted?
That's a good question. We're probably starting to get near that point. Well, I did my first safe system assessment in about 2013, 14, and then it took me about 3 or 4 years to get anybody to actually want to do another one. So there's a bit of a lag there. But once we were up around 2016 and Austroads started getting on board, we started getting a few. So 17, 18, yeah. So you kind of want to get about 5 years of data usually. So we're probably there. The challenge you'd have is, like anything, how do you compare it against something that didn't happen? So you'd be in a similar situation to a degree, because you would go, no project predicted, because a project was built. You go, no project, original design, which would be a prediction because that's not what they built. Safe system, the design, the actual build, which was subject to safe system assessment, would then have actual crash data to go with it. But the others would still be predictive modeling.
How long would you imagine it might take for a safe system assessment to be well recognised and formally accepted by original designers?
By original designers. So I'm not quite sure I understand the question. So is it saying that, like, in terms of a process, they do a design, a concept, a functional design, whatever it is, you assess it, you make recommendations, you hand it back, and then they goes into their system of altering and changes. So that's just a process thing. It depends how busy they are. How long will it take for the actual culture of the designers to change, in terms of the things that you're recommending being part of their, inherent, suite of things that they do? That'd be interesting. I don't have a good direct idea on that, because it gets complicated with each one. Like, continuous barrier system seems to be actually taken on relatively quickly. It was within sort of a year or so of safe system assessments rolling out there, plus supplementary training and Austroads information and things like that. And then it really altered, that the designers knew that continuous barrier systems were going to give them the best safe system alignment for their high-speed roads if they can afford it within their project. And that seemed to be pretty easily accepted, even though the Austroads Guide to Road Design Part 6 hadn't been updated. So they were working against, or doing things above and beyond the minimum requirements of any sort of standard. So that was good. The ones that they seem to really be still pushing back on, and But in fact, we do a lot of safe system assessment for major road projects Victoria here. And they've actually said to us, well, you're just giving us the same information for these high-speed intersections. And we go, yeah, and we're hoping you're going to change what you do with these. And they're like, well, we don't want to. And we're like, well, okay, we're at a bit of a, yeah. So they're saying, come up with something different. We go, well, I don't know how we can change physics. So yeah, we're at a bit of a loggerheads with them at the moment. Anyway, we'll continue to work on that. Maybe we have to look for different innovative ideas and ways to try to treat some of these high-speed, high-volume signalised intersections to try to make them more aligned with safe system principles. So I hope that answered that.
I think so.
The other thing that I think is a challenge is that there's a lot of big design work, and I don't know how many of you are involved in it, but there's a lot of like really big design work for highway design that is not done in Australia and New Zealand for Australia and New Zealand roads. So it's offshore. And that's like, I've got no issues with that per se, but the issue becomes that it is a really like absolutely blinkered look at whatever's in the standard. So until the standards or the Austroads Guide changes, those designs will not change, because that is what is, I guess, just spit it out as per the standards and guidelines. So the idea of any innovation going above and beyond is sort of somewhat limited on these on those sorts of projects.
Yes, some follow-up comments about, is it definitely a link between designers churning out generic designs and not wanting to deviate from standard design, even when non-standard design can align very well with the safe system?
Yeah, I think that's summed it up pretty well, actually. I challenge a lot of designers and push a lot of designers and like design engineers especially. And, I sort of sometimes say, well, okay, well, you're completely unwilling to deviate from that, even though you know we can get a safer outcome. Why did you even bother doing an engineering degree? I mean, you're essential. Like we can get a trainee drafty to just churn out whatever the standards are saying. Isn't the whole idea that we're meant to be critically looking at standards, designs, guidelines, asking, are they appropriate for this context? Should we, alter them? How have they been produced? What are they based on? And is that applicable to this scenario? And have we got other things that we could do, new innovative things, advanced stuff? Like the idea of just blindly sitting down and following these is just, we need to do a whole lot more than that.
Okay. Can we take a question on more specifics?
Sure.
If we're ready to go there.
Yeah.
On a cross-section intersection, to do the assessments, do we need to do analysis for each of the crossing alignments individually or all together? For example, the main road has a hard median or barriers with no head-on likelihood, but the side road has none. Do they need to be analysed, scored in separate sheets, or all in one under the intersection?
Okay. Yeah, I see. I think I see what you're saying. So if you have a road, hopefully you can see that, a road, and you've got a side road intersection, but the main road is here, right? And really the project's about sort of upgrading this intersection. Think about your runoff road head on and likely your other, pretty much just associated with this main road. Don't go down this road or this road, because it's just going to skew your likelihood and severity scores, because your volumes are going to be based on this volume. So if you did want to go down these other roads, you would have to sort of do individual assessments for that and for that. But for the purposes of your assignment, we want it sort of built on this main road. So your head-on, your runoff road, and then your intersection is just going to be, again, sort of within the, probably, the approach, little bit of approaches to that, for likelihood and severity is obviously going to be speeds of this and speeds of this and angles and heavy vehicles and the like. And yeah, motorcyclists, cyclists, and pedestrians are going to be whatever's in that sort of area for intersections, but also thinking about them along this length of road. I hope that makes sense.
If it doesn't, please let us know.
Well, the reality of that is that if you've got a road with a main traffic volume, like 10,000 vehicles a day or something on your main drag, and these are side roads with like 500 or 200 or the like, to allocate the likelihood score from a low volume road to a high volume is just, you're fudging your accounting of your matrix by doing that.
Okay, just some final comments. Yep, and that's all good. Confirmation, it makes sense. It should be driven from the client side to ensure that SSA is implemented just as a pre-construction safety audit.
Yeah, and I'll show you some of the policy requirements from other jurisdictions at the moment. I know New Zealand's got a strong interest in this. I haven't seen anything actually sort of formalised in policy. Maybe somebody knows of something that's come out recently, but I mean, it's in your strategy, obviously. But whether it's a documented part of business case development or requirement, will be good to see something like that come into play.
And it would be great to help the conversations, i.e. the example, there's a report shown at the start, I think it was your memo, asking someone to sign off on X number of deaths and serious injuries, but I understand it's not so straightforward. And I think from the slide you're showing here, Ken, the comment is, would think that 60 less fatalities should justify doing everything in high safe system alignment.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's pretty remarkable that there is that residual, like that ability to get that much more out of it. It sort of comes down to an individual project and individual sort of specifics within the project, which still continue to get resistance. So we need to continue to work on that, lobby and push and challenge and try and get politicians in the community and even our own leaders within organisations on board with some of the some movement forward. But I think it's a really good point. Great. Well, thank you. That's really good input. Certainly made a mess of this slide, haven't I? So let's delete all that. So just a few dot points of benefits of the safe system assessment process. Obviously, it's now a sort of consistent way and a Austroad sort of approved way of determining how well a project aligns with safe system principles. It's a really good method to compare project design options. And you saw that, I think, from the example that I ran through where there was the 3 options. So last week where there was 3 options of a roundabout or 2 signalised intersection options. So you can see that you can sort of clearly say which one is better than the other. And for those who are road safety auditors, we know that's not what you should do in a road safety audit. You're not there to compare, you're just there to comment on each of the specifics of each of the projects. But this is a great tool for that comparison. It's provides good information on the design changes that can be made to bring things closer to alignment with safe system principles. Really good assistance for planners, designers, project managers to take this idea of the safe system from theory to practice. And really, I did find very much in the early days, and it still continues now, is the frustration from a lot of people that, you know, the safe system's talked about a lot, and Vision Zero's talked about a lot. There's a lot of you know, statements you're like, yeah, well, okay, we all agree there should be, you know, no death or serious injury as an aspiration, or we're all, you know, we don't want people killed and seriously injured on the road. And, you know, and I find a lot of people can get to say, well, what do we actually do? Let's get out of this, you know, when we're on board, we want road safety. What do we do? And so this is a good tool to actually start saying, well, these are some of the things we need to do. And yeah, so it actually makes it practical, which I think is great. And it's a good basis for future planning, design, and infrastructure. So I was going to talk to you about the process guidance. And I'll jump into this unless, Kathy, something else has popped up in terms of questions at this stage.
Yes, it has. Do you think safe system assessment will become a requirement within Austroads? And just a follow-up comment to that, I'm asking because we look at a lot of development designs driven by others, and I think it means, and they consider the drivers to require, or drivers to be compliant. I think that's what it's trying to say. Michael, let me know if I've got that wrong.
Right. So there, I mean, there's a lot in that question. So the first thing I'd say is Austroads doesn't like to get in the space of dictating to a jurisdiction what they must or must not do. Like that's up to your council or your National Road Authority or the like. You know, Australia doesn't want to get into that. They like to provide guidance, and hence they're all Austroads guides, aren't they? There are standards prescribed in different areas, not by Austroads, and they're more prescriptive. But a lot of jurisdictions just say, well, you know, we'll adopt what Austroads is suggesting. Now, the safe system assessments are documented in the Austroads Guide to Road Safety Part 6 and Part 6A, which is road safety audit stuff, talking about when audits should be done and what their value is. And it mentions safe system assessments as a valuable tool. Again, it doesn't say anywhere that, you know, you should do road safety audits at these stages, or if projects are this big, they must have road safety audits, or they must have safe system assessments. It doesn't say any of that. That's a policy decision at a national level, or a state level, or a local level. And yeah, so Austroads won't be mandating it. They won't mandate anything. But what a lot of the things that sort of, I suppose, change at an Austroads level are more and more acceptance of the principles of the safe system and trying to integrate those into design guidance. So things like people making mistakes and people leaving the road, people running red lights and these sort of things. So we're seeing more and more of that filter into the Austroads guides. And some changes to the guidance around infrastructure treatments and behavioural aspects as well. And you'll see a lot more of that in the next update to the Austroads Guide to Road Safety. The whole series is being updated. So our company's been running that update, leading that update over the last couple of years to integrate a lot more of that into those guidance documents. So we're seeing progress. It's just really slow. It's slow and it's hard and it's a slog because you've got to get all these jurisdictions on board and agreeing, and then you get, you know, the Queenslanders who say no to some things that everybody else wants, and then it's a, you know, add 6 months to the process because you got to get that over the line or changed. So it's a challenging process. Okay. So let's have a look at some of the processes that happen for safe system assessments around you know, different jurisdictions in Australia, and some general guidance about what would be good process and practice for a council in New Zealand to take up, or overarching stuff at a national level. So the first thing to identify is that safe system assessments are best value in the early stages of a project. So if you have, you know, they're planning to build a new, I don't know, transport interchange hub, buses and trains and cars and pedestrians and cyclists all in, you know, this one big transport interchange in the middle of wherever, Hamilton. You know, getting in it when they're starting to put down concepts, ideas, planning level, you know, draft sort of designs is where you want to be doing your safe system assessments. Because once you're into some real, you know, detailed design stuff, and they're, you know, into, you know, if you get the detailed design set for the roads and the like, and they've done everything. They've done the drainage, they've done the pavement design, they've done the you know, the function, the actual road design, the reluctance to actually alter anything is huge. They're happy to tweak around a little bit with little bits and pieces, but really, when they've got the 700-page design set, and you're saying, you know what would align better with safe system principles if the entry point was actually over here, because that's your pedestrian desire line, and then you can move this, and the cars could actually go in and out here, and that way I can alter the exposure to crashes. So pedestrians' exposure goes down because, you know, they're not actually having to cross the road now. They just go, we needed that information a year and a half ago. So getting in early is so important where there's actual fundamental change that can happen. And road safety audits are actually a far better tool when you're into the detailed end, and they'll pick up these little, you know, bits and pieces, and they show because they're not scored, in a road safety audit in the same way. I mean, they get a risk rating, but it makes more sense. You know, you've got maybe the audit saying, well, these two signs are close to each other, and there's a chance that one sign will block the other sign. So consider moving that sign over to here. And the reality in a safe system assessment is that's, you know, you might point that out, but that's not going to be enough to change a likelihood score, unless it was, you know, something, you know, dramatic. But usually, you know, altering some sign locations is not enough to alter a likelihood score by a whole or even a half score. Anyway, to try and get it done in these early stages. And if you're writing a policy, or you're thinking about a council policy and saying, well, we should do safe system assessments, even if, you know, we do them in-house and we do sort of quick version of it for everything that comes through, do it early, not when it's sort of very far progressed. Open to traffic, you know, maybe at an existing conditions level, you can do a safe system assessment as well, but I think that's a good diagram. Don't forget to count your wallies.
And on that, there's a question, sorry. can it be done where there's a problem intersection and no project or even concept, but an SSA would help identify those most at risk and what the improvements should focus on? Is that your existing conditions?
And that's sort of what I was alluding to there. It can give you a good way to sort of identify, understand. It gives you a nice structured way of looking at an existing intersection or existing bit of road, trying to think about improvements. So yes, you can certainly do that. Some people that I trained up on safe system assessments in New South Wales for work for Transport for New South Wales have been actually utilising the process for some fatality reviews. So when there's been a fatal crash, they've added a safe system assessment as a tool to try to sort of understand the road environment and the issues and the like, and especially also utilise some of those other qualitative questions that we talked about, wider safe system questions about the people, the vehicles, the post-crash care and everything like that. So that's been an interesting process, and I think I found out some good things. They often find some things that aren't quite relevant to the crash that happened because they're forced to go through this process, but I think that's kind of a good thing sometimes. So anyway, it's quite a versatile tool. Anything else there, Kathy?
No, all good. Thank you, Ken.
So a little bit more on that difference between a safe system assessment and a road safety audit. And now this is really sort of generic stuff. I know some auditors do things in a slightly different way to others, and maybe I'm being a bit broad and harsh sometimes on this, but issues that impact the likelihood of crashes, yeah, audits and safe system assessments both do that, and they do that really well. The severity of crashes, I say sometimes in a road safety audit. Now, the reason I say that, it's part of a road safety audit. You can't get to a risk without looking at severity, but just the number of road safety audits I see that just blindly, completely ignore the severity of crashes when they happen, in the sense that, the classic is your signalised intersection between two high-speed roads, and the audit doesn't even sort of entertain the severity of crash when it happens. It's all about, all the things trying to stop the crash happening in the first place, which is hugely important, but that's all the likelihood stuff, and that severity is just sort of ignored. That's why I say sometimes. Yeah. Identifies issues on exposure. Well, yeah, audits really, well, if they do, it's all embedded in likelihood anyway. And provides recommendations that improve road safety outcomes. I say they both do, absolutely. Considers all road users. Yep, they both do that. Focuses on fatal and serious injury only. Safe system assessment is all about fatal, serious injury. Focuses on all crashes, fatal, serious, and other injury. Yep. So technically, a safe system assessment doesn't need to look at other injury, crashes, or even sort of worry too much about that. I mean, we kind of do, but yeah. Safer vehicles. So you're directly asked those questions in a safe system assessment about the vehicles, the people. Your maintenance, can it be maintained and the like? There's a little bit of that sort of questioning in that safe system assessment, and sometimes thought about in both of these. Investigate the impact on post-crash care. Again, the safe system assessment does that. Now, make recommendations to redesign the project if required. So I'm going to go yes on the safe system assessment, definitely talk about that. Audit, maybe it crosses a bit harsh. It's sort of, you're not meant to redesign the project, but you make recommendations and things. So maybe that's sometimes. Sometimes, definitely. I've never seen an audit talk about post-crash care. Encourages innovative designs to improve harm. Again, maybe some really sort of advanced auditors are starting to think about that, but Anyway, there's a little comparison for you. Safe system assessment can also be used at a program level. And I find that an interesting one as well. You can sort of analyze whole programs to see how well they align with safe systems. So let's go through the process. The process sort of laid out says something along these lines. So you determine, first of all, what's the level of safe system assessment that's going to happen on your project. Now, there are two types of assessments that have emerged: a full safe system assessment and a rapid safe system assessment. Now, these were just conjured up by the Victorian Road Authority and then taken on by the South Australians, and Queenslanders are now taking them on. And they were termed full and rapid, and I think Queensland's called them full safe system and light safe system assessment. But it's all sort of embedded into the depth of analysis that you do. And I'll show you the difference between the two shortly. But somebody responsible for the end asset, ideally, so the road authority, the council, the National Road Authority should be saying, okay, well, this project needs a full safe system assessment, or this can have a rapid safe system assessment, or this doesn't need one at all. So somebody needs to make those decisions. And then again, the safe system assessment team is selected, and New Zealand's probably one of the best places sort of established to select safe system assessment teams to a degree, because you don't have like a register of road safety auditors, nor do you have a register of safe system assessors. So you'd use the same sort of process. You'd say, well, they just need to be reasonably qualified and have done some training in the safe system assessment space and know what they're doing. Then some sort of commencement meeting or discussion or handing over of designs and all of that, gathering information, intel, and that understanding of the project context. So you're going to get everybody either in the room together or have a Zoom or a Teams meeting, and or be sending over lots of correspondence and answering lots of questions. So the safe system assessment team has that full understanding and all the documentation and everything they need to be able to do their assessment. Then there's a site inspection. So the safe system assessment team gets out there, looks at the site as you are going to do or have done with yours. And you gather an understanding of how it operates now, the existing conditions. You sort of look at your design and you go, okay, I can see where that's going to alter here, and that's interesting. That might bring up some issues here, or it's interesting. All the pedestrians are crossing back there, but they're going to put their crossing down there. I wonder how that's going to work. Are they actually going to use it? You start asking all of those sorts of on-site typical questions. Then you complete the matrix, or as many matrices as you've decided need to be produced. You go through that consideration of the other elements of the safe system through those documented questions. Identify treatments that improve alignment with safe system principles for every single design that they've given. You write up this report, and you've got the template of a report available to you. And it's handed over to the client, and then they respond to that. And so in that template, you'll see that there's a column left blank for client response. So it's saying to them, there you go, there are ideas. Now it's over to you to decide whether you're going to do those or not do those or do something different. A bit like a road safety audit, the responsibility of the safe system assessment team really ends there. It's over to the client to do what they want to do with that. It's advice. But hopefully they amend the designs and incorporate them and, make some actual changes to their project, because we're not doing that, that's the point of the whole process. Oh, you get some scores and some ideas, so that might be valuable. So that's the sort of general process. So once they've amended their design, they may say, can you rescore our new design? So you just drop it back into this point here, and you then go, yep. Well, actually, you'd redo the matrix you'd make any comments about alterations to that one, the new one that they've come up with. You'd do a new matrix, you'd add that as a report, and you'd, sort of add that column to your graph, your big graph that you're producing. So, you might have done one, and then you say, well, here's your new one, and you brought it all the way down to here and all the way down to here. But this one, actually, whatever you changed, that went up. Okay. So I'm going to pause there, and then I'll just take you through a couple of things that other jurisdictions have done. But it might be a time for a stretch and a fill up of coffee if you want. So what do you say, Kathy? A 2-minute, 30-second break?
2-minute, 30 seconds sounds great. And if you've got any questions, just jot them in or pop your hand up. But yes, otherwise, good idea. I'll pause there, and we'll pick up again in about 2 minutes.
Okay. About ready to get back into it, Kathy?
For sure. Do it.
Okay. So I'll just show you what some of the other jurisdictions are doing, just out of your interest, and you might decide you want to jump onto this. Vic Roads or the Victorian government have got their safe system engineering sort of site, and they've got their own guidelines there that you can get a copy of, and they've got the template, which we've given you in Moodle and on your memory stick anyway. So they've got the templates, but they also have this register of recommended safe system assessors. And their list basically says you need to do some formal training, which is this course, or anything equivalent. They use this course as well. You need to get some experience. You need to do a safe system assessment. And then you need to submit that safe system assessment for them to review and get assurance that you're competent. And then they'll put you on to the list. So they actually then publish a PDF list of safe system assessors, and it's a building list, which is really good. We like to see that. So that's just all that they show you on the list. So the South Australians and Victorians sort of set some corporate requirements, essentially their policy, which says safe system assessments must be done on certain projects. And so the way they decided to do that was based on dollar value predominantly. They say these, there's a quicker safe system assessment that can be done on projects that are less than $2 million if you decide that a safe system assessment is required at all. For projects that between 2 million and 5 million total estimated cost, a full safe system assessment should be done for any complex projects or anything that's sort of considered, it's got a decent risk of fatal serious injury or anything innovative. But the sort of quicker version can be done for low risk projects or any repeat assessment. So now I talked about going back and redoing a new design or the like. Yeah, they just say, well, you can do the quick version on that. But the big projects, anything above $5 million, full safe system assessment for all of them, and a rapid, the lesser one can only be done on those repeat assessments on the same project. So let me tell you the difference between these two, at least the way the South Australians and the Victorians have defined them. So they're saying a full safe system assessment, you've got your commencement meeting, you have background context, you have your workshop, which they still say is sort of optional within that, but it is quite often done. Inspect the site, do the matrix, answer all those qualitative questions about the vehicles, the post-crash care, changes, do the full report. So they've got a template for a full report and a template for a rapid. And then it goes through the process that we talked about. The rapid one has sort of removed the workshops. It's given an option like that you don't need to do a site inspection. Now, we pretty much do a site inspection on everyone, but that's one thing that they've said, well, at least to get a rough indication of how we're aligning, maybe the site inspection could be dropped out. The reports are a bit more streamlined, and you don't actually do those consideration of the other elements. So you don't do those qualitative questions. You don't look so much into post-crash care and those sorts of things. So that's been dropped out as well. The reality is, though, the difference between these, if you include the site visit in your rapid, which I like to do because you get great value of it, maybe a rapid's like 60 to 70% of the effort. So still, it's not like we're talking one's a 10-minute exercise and the other's a 1-week exercise. So that's probably all I want to touch on in terms of process. I'm happy to ask questions or take comments about the processes that are happening in other areas, or what you're currently doing with safe system assessments, or what you're thinking you might like to do and the like. Or I'm happy to run through a few sort of other safe system, other road environments and have a bit of a chat about what aligns well with safe system principles and what doesn't. So any questions about the process, any comments?
All looks straightforward, Ken, so no questions at this stage.
Yeah, so once you successfully finish off your safe system assessment, and I mark that, and as long as you get above 80% and you've finished everything else off, you'll get your certificate, and you can call yourself a safe system assessor. There is no sort of register or further things within New Zealand, at least. So you're welcome to do that. Your certificate that you get from this is currently as good as it gets.
Pretty good, Ken. A couple of follow-up questions here. How long after the training will the resource info be available? Everything is on, everything apart from the recordings is on your memory stick that you would have received in your pack. So that's always available to you. And I haven't quite worked out how to shut the course down after everyone finishes. So I'm going to say about 3 months. I'm giving myself 3 months there.
Part of the, we want to give you that memory stick so you've got a backup if, you couldn't get into Moodle and those sort of things, but also for you to just have that longevity of information so you can always sort of refer back to different things. But the other thing is that, you've got my contact details, you've got Kathy's contact details, so you can follow up with questions. And if you couldn't find something, we can send it to you. That wouldn't be an issue at all. And if others are interested, we're running this course quite often now with the ability to do it online, and hopefully doing a few in person in New Zealand a little bit later on.
Yeah, just waiting for that bubble to definitely kick in. I think we've just got the go ahead for another couple of courses, so there will be some more safe system assessment training later this year for your colleagues. This one I might throw out to the group, this question. Just wondering if any councils are using safe system assessments in New Zealand and to what level. So would love feedback from other participants in this session. If you can provide any commentary there. Or Ken, do you know if any councils are heavily involved? Well,
I mean, AT, Auckland Transport, certainly using safe system assessments. There are sort of big beast of a sort of entity, aren't they? I know some of the consultants that we've trained are utilising it within the sort of project development process, often in a lighter touch way rather than that sort of formalised independent assessment, but utilising it in that way. But that's sort of all I've heard of at this stage. I know that it's been fairly recent that too many councils have had people trained up or understand the process, but I think it's going to get a fair bit of traction.
Yes, further comments on that. Has been occasionally done for a small number of, I'm going to guess, CCC, so Christchurch City Council projects there.
Correct.
Okay. Road safety audits, but no SSAs is some other comments coming back. Have you done an SSA on temporary traffic management, long projects, numerous detours, etc.?
No, I have not, and I can't think of any that have been done on temporary traffic management, but the process would be exactly the same. And in theory, it would work beautifully. Yep. So you could be a world leader in that one if you wanted to jump in and do one of those as your first one. And I'd certainly hope you'd share it with me if you did. I'd love to see it. That'd be great.
So on that as well, can you do a safe system assessment for a specific road user? For example, if planning a cycle network, so only considering cyclists and look at the various corridors and intersections based on type rather than specific roads?
So the answer to that is yes, but there's a sort of, I underline that but because, and I have done that. That one I have done. So a group, we got together and did a safe system assessment on a bike corridor, proposed shared path, new upgrade, and we essentially rearranged the matrix for bikes only. So it became a runoff road for bikes, as in bikes running off the road, head on. So bike to bike head on crashes, intersection being, all the intersection interactions for bikes, and then we removed bikes out of that because they were the focus, and then you had pedestrians, so that was bikes hitting pedestrians, cyclists, pedestrians and motorcyclists, so any interaction with motorcyclists, which was kind of meaningless because you're quite low. So I have done that, and it was okay. It was actually pretty good. I think it came out with some, gave the information we wanted, but it's different. It looks different to a normal safe system assessment. The scoring was a different, end score, and so it needed a bit of priming to the people who were receiving it to understand why it was different. So, yeah, but the flexibility is there, and I could dredge that up and share it. The only thing I would say is, though, that was quite a while back in the really early stages, so the format would be quite different to what you were seeing in the templates, because it's sort of, things have been refined. But happy to share that if somebody's interested.
Okay, great, thank you. This and yes, they'd like that shared. So dredge away, Ken. Oh, a few people want it now, so I'll pop it in Moodle once we dredge.
Yeah, but I have to stress though that I don't want people to get it and go, well, hang on, that's not the same as the template of what we've been doing here, because it was a different exercise at a time when there was no guidance. We were forging away in our own little world. But I'll share it because you might get some ideas, some learnings, and this whole process is still so new that innovation and adaptation and improvement is all on the cards.
Good. This question. This has been an excellent course for a practitioner like me, but everything that ends up being done or not is ultimately decided on by others. Do you have similar information or courses, for example, managers or politicians, in order to show them the importance of these assessments?
Yeah, we do shorter sessions with different leadership groups and those about this, and I have sort of high level executive people that talk about this sort of stuff with them. Big challenge, I agree with you. I mean, the big challenge to get them even to come along to a couple of hours of training on something like this. They don't. So it is a challenge. Where I think that you can gather some good traction is to be bold and just sort of make statements which are true, but may not tell the full story. But things, you know, there is a national commitment to safe system assessments in New Zealand. Like, you go, if I was in a council, I would write a memo up the line. I say, the National Road Safety Strategy has been produced. We now have to, you know, one of the actions in there is that we have to do safe system assessments on old projects. We've done a training course on how to do these, and we've analysed it, and we think that any project above, you know, $2 million has to have a safe system assessment, and anything under that should have a, you know, a rapid safety, you know, some sort of put together policy. And you just basically say that our government has committed to this, and this is how we are responding as a council, and to operationalise it within our council. And then, you know, they'll get that and they'll go, oh, okay, road safety, yeah, it's important. It's in the national strategy. Okay, they seem to have a process. It's not going to be a major, you know, impost on things. Okay, we'll just we'll sign that off as council policy. Now, if you're in Wakatahi, how do I pronounce it? How do you pronounce it again, Kathy? Wakatahi?
I think it's Wakakotahi.
Wakatahi, yep, that's it. Then, yeah, the likes of sort of Fabian Marsh and Maria Drinkwater and the like are, and Jessica Rattray are working on this, but, you know, some prompt emails to them just saying, hey, did the Safe Systems Assessment course, think the process is really good, if you think it's good, and we want to see more of this and more formalised in when it has to be done, and, you know, what's happening in that space, which will spark them onto, you know, doing some more.
You got a thumbs up for that answer, Ken. Good job. Just from me. No.
It's, well, if that was the council, I mean, it's a little hobby of mine, yeah, when I worked in state government here in Victoria, was to, you know, think of innovative, creative ways to get things through the system, because, you know, traditional ways of trying to work it up the line and, you know, wouldn't work. So, yeah, trying to leverage off different things, make people feel that if they don't do it, they're going to be contravening big, important ministerial decisions and the like.
We've got about 30 minutes to go.
Okay, that's good. Well, what I want to do with the last 30 minutes is to just run through a few more road environments. We're going to do this fairly quickly. I don't want to spend a huge amount of time on this. In fact, I probably want to give you a little bit of time now at the end to, Kathy, is there a quiz after this session?
Yes, there is. Short quiz.
Yeah, so give you some time to do your final short quiz and, you know, just maybe refresh where you're at with your safe system assessment. So hopefully we'll finish fairly soon. But the thing is that we're giving you a specific road environment to do a safe system assessment on. But the reality is when you get out there, you might be asked to do a safe system assessment on any road environment. It could be a motorway, it could be a local back street. And so I just want to briefly touch on a whole lot of different road stereotypes, I'll call them, or road environments, and we'll talk about what aligns well with safe system principles, what doesn't, what sort of things we're thinking of. And I'll probably get you a little bit involved in it, like we did in one of those other sessions. So they're the road environments. I'm just going to briefly touch on residential, strip shopping centre, mixed-use arterials, low and high volume rural roads, major urban freeways, rural highways, and high volume outer suburban arterials. So here's our sort of residential street. Maybe just type in a few things you see there that, well, let's do that little exercise that we did before. Things that you would like to change to that road environment that would improve alignment with safe system principles, and does it impact exposure, likelihood, or severity? Just jot maybe a few things in. I'll give a prize to somebody who does the same as one that I'm writing down, which, not to say it's the only thing. There's lots of good things that can be done.
Just a question that's popped in whilst everyone's tracking away on this one. We ask for RSAs on some new land use developments. Would you recommend SSAs for those as well? That's a good question. I would say not yet. Now, the reason I say not yet is because if your local government isn't even doing it on doing safe system assessments on your own projects, to require developers to do this is kind of a bit of a step too far in my mind. And it's also this sort of lack of understanding from industry on what the process is and what to do with it and the like. So I think get your own internal systems going and really well established first, get some assessments happening, and then filter it out to get developers and have it as a development requirement, maybe in your permit requirements and the like. But that's, to me, the next step. Right, let's have a look at what people are saying. Oh, lots of good stuff. Oh, that's right. This group is excellent, aren't they? Right, let's give Sarah Grant a prize. Remove cars from the road. Well, actually, I was going to say we'll give Sarah a prize. She said remove cars from the road. I'm wondering whether that means to close the road and have no cars. That's what I was giving the prize for. But it could be remove parking, which another few people are talking about. As we talked about, I think previously, removing the parking reduces the likelihood of crashes by opening up sightlines and the like, but can increase the likelihood of crashes and the severity of crashes by vehicles going faster through there. So you want to complement it with features to slow vehicles. Open sightlines, slow vehicles is your go. Local area traffic management, yeah, very good one there. Give Matt a prize as well. So we've got raised pedestrian crossing, traffic calming measures. This is all good stuff. Trim vegetation, add warning signs, likelihood factors, lots of support for traffic calming. So pinch points, chicanes, and they're all part of your local area traffic management suite of things. All about keeping those speeds down. So include the street in Living Streets program. I don't know what that is, but it sounds good. I assume it's trying to make the whole area more livable, and I dare say it would also
then include slowing vehicle speeds down, which is going to align with safe system principles. Lots of good stuff here. I'm just looking for any others that sort of, yeah, so the idea of a shared path or the like to alter the exposure is certainly a possibility, and might work quite well, especially if it's a you know, a major collector road or something like that. So thinking about that, yeah, that what am I trying to say here? Like movement of place categorization. What is a function of the road as you decide? So and yeah, well, Sarah's already got a prize for this one, but it was worthy of the prize because Sarah's sort of mentioned there a bit about other elements of the safe system, education. You know, is this the right place to cross? Are we looking both ways? Is that bad look? You know, very clear to look. We do have helmet use, which is good, but you know, there's a whole raft of things beyond just the infrastructure, isn't there? So, but the reality is on these, as many of you have put down there, from an infrastructure perspective to start with, we need the speeds to be very low. And I mean, this is not providing a major through movement. Can you close it? It should be the first question you're asking. Can you close it to through movements? And then can you slow things down? You'll get improvements in your likelihood and severity score if you can slow things down. Thank you, everybody, for that. That was good. This one is where you sort of strip shopping centres. And again, you're going to prioritise vulnerable road user safety in these. You're going to think about the forces for vulnerable road users. You're going to ask similar questions. Can the road be closed? And then you're going to look, if not, can it be a very, very low speed environment as it should be with the amount of pedestrian activity and the like here. This was an interesting one, and it's, you know, I got asked to go and investigate this area about 10 years ago, no, 8 years ago maybe, in Sydney. This is Bondi Junction. After two pedestrian fatalities in the area, and there was a 50 km/h speed limit through there, which I think a lot of you would be shocked by, as I was. And my sort of recommendation on this one involved turning it into a shared zone, basically. You know, speeds incredibly low, raised areas all around, restricting access to vehicles. I said basically this is a place for people. That's the entrance to the big shopping centre and station, and you know, and there's pubs, and it's all happening there. And really, that then the report was sort of put aside because the traffic ops and the bus people didn't like the idea and slow vehicles and traffic operations down, and it was just sort of put in a shelf, and it was disappointing, especially considering then since then about another I think it was 4 pedestrians have been killed, and they're finally at the point now where they're going to make it a 30 km/h speed zone at least. But it's a lot of, you know, it's so obvious. But anyway, I'm on a rant. But what, you know, slowing vehicles through there, and you know, do vehicles need to be there? We need to think about that sort of stuff. All right, prize for the first person who can tell me where that is. It's got a, yes, Jason. Jason gets a prize. He was the quickest. You can tell it's New Zealand because it's got a pack and save. That's the only place I know of pack and save. Yes, it's Hamilton, just outside the CBD there. And I'm calling this the mixed-use arterial. Your bus stops, and you've got your vehicles, you've got pedestrians. Cyclists use that route as well. So what sort of stuff would you like to see in that road environment to align better with safe system principles? And yeah, maybe pop down exposure likelihood and severity as well at the end of your ideas. So I think it's 60km/h speed limit here, and I think it changes into 40 as you go into town. But I'm sure Jason or somebody can correct me if I got that wrong. Jason, pretty sure it's 50km/h. Yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, well, we're seeing a few things come in, which is good. Thank you for those who are popping things in. But some people talking about potentially a raised median to reduce the likelihood of crashes, and that's right. It would do the likelihood of crashes because it would be a refuge area and also stop people potentially leaving their lane as much. We're seeing some people talking about mid-block crossings, raised areas, raised signalised areas to slow vehicles down to try to address that severity as well, at especially at some points of specific conflict there. Yeah, bit of talk around the bus stops and ways to alter arrangements with the bus stops to try to improve things, and mainly associated with the likelihood of crashes. And yeah, so we're really sort of starting to get involved in seeing that these areas where you start to get, continuous signalised crossings, your through speeds aren't hugely high and aren't hugely impacted by some features to slow vehicles at these specific points because, the red lights are a major impact anyway. There's a report that I was project manager for an Australia's project called Safe System for Mixed Use Arterials. And it's got lots of ideas on this sort of stuff and how you can do it in these sorts of road environments and, slow vehicles at certain points. So I think that's another one we'll share as well. So Kathy, if you're keeping a note of things to share, Safe System for Mixed Use Arterials is a good one. And yeah, lots of different ideas. Access rationalisation from Neil there came in. I think that's always a great thing to look at. Do we need as much access onto these roads? And again, you're going to analyse the function of that road for helping determine the answers to that. So thank you for that. These are going to be the really hard ones, I think. So this is sort of your low volume rural roads. And I know you've got a huge amount in New Zealand and a lot of them aren't as straight as this one. So you've got some windy and you've got lots of challenging road environments to deal with. And a lot are even, lesser standard than this, narrower, and hugely challenging. And we've sort of got this culture of a high speed, is what should be done on these roads. So trying to convince the public on an alteration around that is a challenge. Where I sort of feel we're at on these is that we can, to get our better alignment with safe system principles, the easy things to do that we need to do sort of as quickly and immediately as we possibly can are a lot of the likelihood factors, which are things like audio tactile edge lines, center line, delineation, guideposts, and then some barrier to try to treat the highest risk hazards, sealing shoulders if you can, and the like. But the expansive network means you can't invest a huge amount. What we'd ideally like would be continuous barrier systems to keep the high speeds up, but the cost of that is so exorbitant on these low volume roads that you won't likely do it. That should be targeted at high volume roads, and then we need to start being smarter with the way we manage speeds on some of these roads and potentially trying to bring speeds down. That's a huge conversation, a huge challenge to have. New Zealand's got some exciting stuff in the pipeline there and starting to emerge in terms of the way you're going to manage speeds. But I think those of you who interface with the public know that the challenges to come in terms of getting community change on this. So it's going to be a really hard one. But I love what I'm seeing coming in already. RRPMs doing the Asian sealed shoulders and yeah, the management of speed. So all good stuff. Yeah, community buy-in on speed and speed management is such a hard one. And I talked briefly about that, but we're in this challenge where we can see the benefits from a whole of community perspective. They see the desk benefits at an individual perspective. And so it's very hard to have that conversation. We need to be a bit crafty about it. I don't think I have time at this stage to revisit a whole lot of that. There's a lot of interesting stuff to go through. I'm just going to jump through a couple of road environments now, and then just give a little bit of time at the end just to see if anybody's got any final comments or questions, and for Kathy to recap on what needs to be done to finalise your course and the like. So high volume rural roads, so your state highway ones or the like, big roads, these are the ones where we're going to look at, in the investment in the continuous barrier system, separation using medium barriers, and full containment. It's really going to be, if you pick your routes that are your really dominant routes and keep them high speed, but do it with continuous barrier systems. So when people make mistakes, which they will, they hit a barrier system and they survive. And the intersections of those are a combination of roundabouts or acceleration lanes or grade separated overpasses. And for those, as you sort of roll those out, it's really going to be a lot of like rural intersection activated warning signs or speed signs or the like. But the high volume outer suburban arterial style roads, these are your big traffic, pumping traffic around your growth areas and the like. The things like bike lanes just can't happen on these higher speed roads. So they've got to be completely dedicated, separated facilities, off-road for bikes. And you really are, if it's that designated traffic corridor, you want to really restrict pedestrians being able to cross and the like at anywhere, and you make some defined crossing points and lower the speed significantly at those, provide overpasses, underpasses, and think about your signalised intersections and the speed of those conflict points as well. Freeways and motorways, they operate really well from a safe system perspective generally, because they've got that, they generally have full containment, and they have separation, and there's restrictions on vulnerable road user access. Where we see a lot of challenges in urban motorways is during flow breakdown. So you've got, when it's operating really smoothly, it's actually really quite good. When it's absolutely stuffed and gridlocked, it from a safe system perspective performs pretty well, because any of the crashes that happen are very low speed, minor, side swipe, little rear enders, and everybody's okay. Yeah, we don't want that to happen, and that's got congestion issues and a whole lot of other dramas. But it's as the freeway starts to break down in flow at high speed, and we're starting to get these challenges happen. We see a lot of issues there. So managed motorways become our real go-to tool in reducing the likelihood and severity of crashes. And so managed motorways are everything from managing speed, so you can proactively reduce the speed limit before flow breakdown happens. You can tell that by just volumes, headways of vehicles, and some analysis, and you can start to slow speeds before these things happen. You can meter on ramps And there's a whole lot associated with managed motorways that actually aligns really well with safe system principles when you start to do that safe system assessment on them. And our major rural highways, well, of course, these are going to be full containment with barrier systems. This is an example where, to a degree nowadays, I think that's somewhat redundant to have all that land in the middle because you're going to be putting a central barrier system continually through that anyway. And barrier systems on the outside as well. So, and the intersections, as we talked about, like the others, are going to be grade separated or acceleration lanes and U-turn facilities and acceleration lanes back. I rushed a little bit there at the end, and that was just to give you a little insight. I'm going to stop sharing. I don't know what that is. And we've just got a couple of minutes left where I can answer any final questions. Kathy can tell you what must be done before you get your certificate. Any final questions there, Kathy?
Thank you, Ken. Yes, there was a comment that came in on speed acceptance that you were talking about just yesterday. NZTA suggested the possibility of lowering speed limits to parts of the SH1 north of Auckland due to a recent spate of fatalities. And the RTF, which is the Road Transport Forum, Freight, immediately shouted, "Just upgrade the roads."
Yeah, and that's it's such a complex space. I managed speed zoning in Victoria for 3 or 4 years, and it's such a complex, intertwined, public-facing, challenging issue. Everybody's got a really strong opinion. Well, a lot of people have very strong opinions on it, coming from very different points of view. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me. It is interesting to sort of watch what New Zealand sort of tries to move forwards. And pretty good stuff out of Auckland Transport with some urban stuff, which I actually think urban stuff is easier. It's hard, but it's easier because you've got all the vulnerable road user to leverage off. You know, in these other low volume, high speed environments in country areas, rural areas, it's such a challenge. Anyway, thank you for your input. Now, I want to, well, Kathy, you go, and then I'll finalise things off. So, Kathy's sharing a screen there.
I sure am. So what we're looking at here is things that you need to do in order for you to complete is to make sure you've done all the quizzes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4 and 6. So once you've done the quiz and you've passed it, a little tick will magically appear in this box over here. So if you've got ticks down in the boxes that are required, then you're good to go. If you haven't done your Module 2 assignment, the one where you pick your own intersection and just pop down a couple of things that influence likelihood, severity and exposure, then you need to jump in and do that. Complete your safe system assessment. So that's the one that you're all hopefully working on, and some of you have already done it. There's the template there again. Your sites are there. When you're done, PDF your document and submit. Ken will focus on marking those late next week and probably over the weekend. So by Monday, the 31st of May, if you have submitted everything, you should then be able to download your certificate, and that will magically appear down here. This is just right at the bottom. You give us some feedback on the course. We appreciate any comments that you have. So complete that course feedback, a tick will appear there, and then like magic, your certificate, an electronic version will appear for you there. We'll send you your prizes if you've won any, if you've won too many in the mail, with a hard copy of your certificate as well. That's pretty much it. There's today's quiz. There's the Austroad Safe System Infrastructure on Mixed-Use Arterials document, and we'll also dig out that cycling-specific SSA. And I've covered everything. I'm done.
Yeah, wonderful. So thank you, Kathy. Thanks for all your support in getting all of this organised for everybody for this course. It's a wonderful wealth of resources there. I want to thank everybody for their logging in, their great work on their assignments and the work still to come. And really especially on the interaction and input. Every time I've asked a question, this group's been so wonderful. I still find it weird, the online stuff. Where I'm in there with a group, I can be sort of generating that interaction, but this group's made it really great in terms of jotting stuff in, writing ideas, asking questions. So thank you so much. Please do keep sharing things that you see out there with me, email through photos, thoughts, and keep in contact. You've got my contact details there. We do run some, we're running this again. So there's more opportunity if you've got colleagues. We also run a road safety audit course in a similar format and some other stuff. And we'll keep you informed of that for future things. Thank you very much. Keep in contact if you've got questions on that assignment, but let's knock it off. You've got now a couple of minutes or 1 minute. You can knock the quiz off in 1 minute. I bet you can.
We've got about 12 seconds. Thank you, Ken. A great course. And thanks everyone again for your participation. It's been terrific. We'll look forward to seeing all your assignments.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.